Okay, folks, let me explain to you. Let me explain to you why what Unite Here Local 11 is doing is so wrong. Some of my canvassers have been contracted for several of their campaigns for over a year. Over a year, much longer than a year. They went to Arizona, they went to Georgia, they went to Glendale, they went to LA, they went to Laguna Beach, they went to West Hollywood, they have gone to Anaheim, they have gone to Beverly Hills, I guess is the last one that they're doing. Let me explain to you why this is a problem. If your canvassers got together and actually did a class action, you'd be in some big ass trouble, okay? LA Times, this is from December 13th, 2000, okay? So we're talking 23 fucking years ago. Microsoft to pay $97 million to end temp worker suit. Microsoft Corp will pay $97 million to settle a federal lawsuit from employees who claimed the software giant classified them as temporary workers for years, to deny them standard benefits such as health insurance and the lucrative employee stock purchase plan, thereby saving the company millions. $20 an hour to walk Anaheim so that they could get a measure on the ballot that Deepak is advancing right now to give maid staff $25 an hour as a minimum, okay? And my guys that reported to me got paid $20 an hour for doing that. Under the agreement announced Tuesday, between 8,000 and 12,000 people are eligible for a share of the settlement. The amount each worker will receive depends on when he or she worked, how long he or she worked, and the total number of people who filed claims under the settlement. Microsoft has more than 40,000 employees, and about 5,000 of them are so-called contingency workers. The settlement is unlikely to adversely affect the bottom line for Microsoft, which reported a $9.4 billion profit last year. Okay, so they make more than Fox News. That's nice. The issue has wide-ranging implications for the nation. The Labor Department estimates that more than 10 million Americans are temporary or contract workers. Marcus R. Courtney, who co-founded the Washington Alliance of Technology Workers, a labor organizers group based in Seattle, argues that the battle is just beginning. That's so gross that a labor union would do this, you guys. Many companies continue to use temporary employees on what is essentially a permanent basis to deny them benefits, he said. That's what they're doing to their staff, you guys. That pact they set up, they keep telling them they're on different campaigns, despite the fact that they were continuously employed to walk for these measures for Unite Here. And they have lower pay than the maid staff. They have to use more comprehensive skills of persuasive language when they're in the field, and they're facing much more dangerous consequences than what the maid staff is facing. But all they care about are their union dues paying members and getting their minimum wage raised, not the PAC staff that actually walks the blocks to get those measures on the ballot. The people who have to have the persuasive conversations to get the signatures necessary to protect the maid staff. And they are using this sort of temporary employment loophole to try and get away with giving them the smallest amount of money possible. $20 while you're asking them to walk for maid staff to get $25. Give me a break. If you're going to do something like that, pay your own pack people $25 an hour. And don't ask them to walk 6 days a week. It's a physical job. You're limiting the amount of time that you're going to do for your own maid staff. Why are you doing this to your pack staff? This is so gross, you guys. It's so gross. This ends the perma temp scam at Microsoft. Well, you haven't ended it at Unite here yet because they're fucking doing the same thing to their people. It's a perma temp scam. You've had people on your campaigns for years acting like they're not permanent employees. You don't want to pay medical benefits for them. You don't want to give them a decent living wage, but you want them to walk measures for you to do that for your union dues paying members. And you are unwilling to extend union membership to those employees who walk for you. It does not end the problem with contract work in this industry. You know, and this is the funny thing. It's like whenever I have this conversation with people, they're like, what do you mean, 1099s? No, I am talking about W-2 contract employment. 1099 is another can of worms entirely. That you're like, you got to pay your own taxes and figure it all out all on your own. That's even worse, okay? But what I'm talking about is W-2 contract employment, where like, it's a short gig. I don't have to follow regular employment laws. Not a big deal. I don't care that we're a union and this looks bad for us. Not a problem. This is a tech company. At least we expect this kind of bullshit out of them. Courtney, who was a temporary employee at Microsoft for 2 years, said people often take such jobs because they have no other options. This is not going to go away, he said. We are dealing with the issue of equal compensation for equal work. And ultimately, that issue will have to be addressed. The case initially began with 2 lawsuits dating back to 1992, which charged that Microsoft offered prospective employees temporary work that was identical to work performed by Blue Badge employees with permanent positions. This is how it went for our Canvas staff, you guys. Like, the people who were actual union dues paying members were treated with so much better situation than those of us who got hired word of mouth or got hired Craigslist or whatever it was. The union dues paying members were like, oh yeah, you can just fuck off during the entire shift. Not a problem. We don't expect anything from you. We're just glad you showed up. They didn't even care, you guys. Those of us who actually were doing it to actually make money and make a living, and we weren't doing it just for fun, the best of their staff, who actually had the most convincing arguments with the voters, got shit on hard, and they still are, according to what's going through the Democratic Party of Orange County right now. They got shit on hard. And so the Democratic Party of Orange County is going to do something for Ada and her union dues paying members, while that operation is still abusing people to actually get those measures on the ballot. The only functional difference between the two classes was that one group did not receive benefits. Although some employees preferred temporary employment, Many said they stayed in such jobs for years, in a few cases for more than a decade, in hopes of winning a permanent job. And you think Unite Here is going to hire up that Canvas staff as permanent employees? There were several people who reported up to me who wanted permanent jobs. I wanted a permanent job. I didn't want to operate in that method. As the legal battle wore on, Microsoft changed its policies for using temporary workers. First, it developed guidelines to help managers figure out when a job shouldn't be given to a temporary employee. Then, Microsoft set up policies favoring temp agencies that offer better benefits to temporary workers they handle. Yeah, so they were basically using stuff like what I used to work for in the aughts, which was like Apex Systems Inc., which was at the time the number 2 IT staffing firm in the country. So they would use our services. I was a permanent employee of that company. I was a proposal writer for them. So I had to speak at every level of the organization to respond to those proposals. And prior to being a proposal manager for them, I was in their accounting department. So I have some very deep knowledge of how these companies work. Last February, the company, by the way, that's how I know about this story. Our chief legal officer brought this story up to us during training several times. Last February, the company instituted a policy prohibiting temporary employees from working more than 12 months at a stretch without taking at least a 100-day break. That has nothing to do with this case, said Matt Pila, a Microsoft spokesman. We've implemented these changes to ensure that temporary workers were just that, not to avoid lawsuits. Right, I'm sure. Yeah, there was no risk mitigation going on there. Okay. But Stephen K. Strong, one of the plaintiff's lawyers, disagreed. The first thing Microsoft had to do to settle this case is end the permatemp policy, said Strong, a partner in the Seattle law firm of Bendick, Stobaugh, and Strong. The timing makes it quite evident that that's exactly why they did this. The changes in Microsoft's policies, Strong said, have achieved the plaintiff's objectives. Over the last fiscal year, the company issued blue badges to 3,000 temporary employees. It seems like a big improvement. They still have temporary employees there, but they're more in the nature of real temps. A real temp assignment is like 3 months long, you guys. There is no effing reason that you continue employing people for over a year or a year and pretend that they're not your employees. They're not your employees, so therefore, I don't have to give you medical. That's exactly what Unite Here Local 11 is doing with their Canvas staff. And that's why it's very upsetting to me to see Ada abuse her position at the Democratic Party of Orange County to advance rights for her union dues paying members while abusing the Canvas staff that walked that measure for her to get the signatures to actually put them in the negotiating position to I mean, come on. A lot of these people reported to me. And it's not the kind of work they want to have to do because it's kind of scary. Seeing me get bit, seeing guns get flashed at them, getting stalked in the field, having Nazis observe us. Like, we had so many incidents, no protections, no written job descriptions, and no benefits. Because y'all don't have to do that if we're considered temporary employment. No protections. And there you are. Oh, well, we can't afford to pay you 25. We're going to pay you 20 to walk that measure, to ask for 25 for your maid staff. Do you see the irony and hypocrisy and everything that is wrong with this scenario? His law firm is seeking 28% of the settlement amount, or $27.1 million. The settlement came after the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals found that employers must make the same retirement benefits available to everyone. Yeah, why can't you guys do that? Why don't you just unionize your Canvas staff? Why don't you just offer it to everybody who's actually walking blocks? You want to give everybody $25 a minimum wage? Do it for everybody. Because it is far more complicated to have a conversation with a voter and convince them to sign that petition than it is to wipe down a counter. Okay? Anyone who worked for Microsoft for at least 5 months a year is entitled to money. 5 months a year, you guys. Is entitled to money they would have received if they had been able to purchase the company's stock at a discount, as full-time employees are. The agreement still must be finalized, but preliminary approval came Tuesday from Judge John Coffiner of the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington. No one knows when the money will be distributed. Well, obviously, this was like 23 years ago, so I'm sure it's been distributed by now. That's it. That's it. But this is, everybody's like, why were you so mad? It's like, these are separate things. No, these are not separate things. Microsoft got in trouble for exactly this reason 23 years ago, and that's my point. You can't abuse one portion of your workforce for the advancement of a second portion of your workforce. It's unacceptable, and you most certainly can't, hop, skip between various organizations that you work with. Democratic Party of Orange County versus the PAC that's running the operation versus the union who's like, we're going to invest a ton of our dues into this PAC, but we're keeping them separate because we want slave labor to fucking walk these blocks for us. Fuck you guys.